Welcome to episode 472 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I am here with
Grace Winburn.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part one. And in part two, we're going to be continuing our Javier Bardem series with another crowd-pleasing comedy hit, and that is 2010's Biutiful, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu. And let me tell you, this guy makes you laugh. This guy makes you cry. It's like a Marx Brothers movie in there.
It's fun for the whole family.
Yeah, bring the kids.
Bring the kids.
Bring the kids. Bring grandma. Grandma's gonna love it. Like when people cheered in watching the Avengers movie when all the little action figures showed up, like this is like that, but it's like whenever they say the word beautiful in it like this, you're just like, whoo,
stand up and clap.
Yeah. Did you enjoy my small passive aggressive slight on Marvel?
I did. The action figures, that's so funny. Like, are some of them still in the package so that they stay mint condition? They like waddle maybe up in the box.
They might as well to keep making those things. All right. Speaking of mint condition, I don't know. That's the transition I'm going to go with. Speaking of mint condition, Grace, you caught the latest K-Stew joint that came out a few weeks ago. Tell us about Love Lies Bleeding.
Love Lies Bleeding, a romantic story of toxicity in relationships, or of reaching out and finding someone just as damaged and broken as you are, and connecting and bonding with them. I like
the toxic lesbian era. You got Tar, you got Bottoms, you got Love Lies Bleeding.
I think it's really only fair as well. I mean, if it just seems to paint like a more like rounded portrayal of romantic love. I mean, plenty of straight heterosexual, like male-female relationships in film have a level of toxicity to them. And this is also like, queer relationships, it's not all hearts and stars. Like, it's just as difficult and, fraught as any other relationship. So I just, it's like, it's fair. I think it just across the board, it's fair.
It's good cinema.
It's good cinema. The resounding, like when I heard from a bunch of folks before I saw this, they said that it wasn't sapphic enough. It wasn't romantic enough. And I
great $10 word right there.
Yeah, it wasn't sapphic enough. I guess it kind of depends on, what your threshold is for enough. And, you have to figure that out for yourself. But I found it to be very romantic and still very tender, while also still maintaining this sharp, hard edge. Kristen Stewart. What?
What's it about?
Well, Kristen Stewart plays Lou, a gym manager way out in, I think it's Albuquerque, New Mexico. We took the wrong turn at Albuquerque and wound up here. Katie O'Brien plays her love interest, whose name escapes me right now. I'm so sorry. The two find each other. They lock eyes across the gym training room floor, and it's an instant connection. And there's real chemistry between the two of them, Katie O'Brien and Kristen Stewart, a real easygoing tenderness. Katie O'Brien's character, she's this vagrant. She's hitchhiking her way across country to get to a bodybuilding competition. And she has stumbled into New Mexico looking for work. She finds work courtesy of Lou's brother-in-law, played by Dave Franco, at a gun range. She becomes a waitress at a gun range. She's finding her footing in this town, and she starts to go to the gym, and that's where she meets Lou. Katie O'Brien is gorgeous. She's this beautiful, muscle-bound princess. She is statuesque and definitely not from around these parts. So the locals sort of swarm to her. And after a display of physical toughness, she gets into a fight. Lou patches her up. The two just become inseparable. She starts to stay at Lou's house. They start to develop a relationship, a bond, a connection, a romance. But immediately there seemed to me to be sort of this... It all just sort of seemed like too much too fast, but I don't really know. Perhaps that is how lesbian relationships work. I've heard the term like U-Haul lesbians, where they like immediately move in together. And that's kind of how it happens. They just immediately connect, and one doesn't want to do without the other. It's almost like an addiction. This movie also sort of deals a lot in addictions, like an addiction to working out, like the highs that you get from the endorphins. There's also juice addiction, not like OJ juice or like orange juice, but like steroid juice. There's that addiction.
On the day that he died, this is what you're doing.
You know, we can't joke about it. Lou is constantly trying to quit smoking. She's inundated with commercials and people all around her saying that smoking's bad for her health. It'll get her in the end, and she needs to be careful with that. So she's constantly battling that addiction as well. But there's also these two just seem to be like very addicted to the high that they get when they're in this relationship. Lou gets to be herself. Katie O'Brien, again, like her name escapes me, and I'm so sorry. Her character gets to be herself as well. And there seems to be this sort of tension between the two of them. Obviously, like sexual, but it's, you know, like one can't be without the other. And there is also this criminal edge to it. So Lou's father is a well-known and wanted criminal figure in this town, and he is under investigation by the FBI. Lou is approached to give testimony to her father, against her father, but she won't participate. So then there's also that sort of like, you know, we dip our toe into like toxic family relationships, and how do you remove yourself from that? You know, what is the effect of her relationship with her father? How does that look on Lou? Like, you know, the trauma that she wears from that, and how then she seeks out these other people. She was controlled by her father to do things that she didn't want to do, things that she wasn't proud of. And now it sort of seems like she is able to exert the same sort of control in certain situations. Very charming. Kristen Stewart is also very funny in this. There's a couple of scenes of some comedy. She's so disarming, and it's almost like she doesn't even have to try to be funny. She just is, you know, that kind of stuttery stammering that she does that people used to make fun of her for. She's certainly using it to her advantage in this. There's also some really great horror elements in this. There's a couple scenes where like the screen just goes completely red. There's these harsh red lights, and there's the terrifying figure of her father. I mean, he looks like a skeleton with a wig on. Her father, played by Ed Harris, he is so frightening, such a cool and calculated villain. I'm afraid of him the very second that I see him. He's also, I'm looking it up because I felt so bad. Jackie's boss.
I was going to say it's
Katie
Jackie.
O'Brien. I looked it up. I felt so bad. And that's so funny. I mean, these two kind of masculine names like Jackie, Jack, and Lou. Like, that's great that, you know, it's
sounds like a gangster film from like the 50s.
Jack, Lou Senior.
Jackie, get over here. Lou.
But he brings in this this foreboding, like paternal, like frightening edge to it. It's not so much that like daddy's gonna make it all go away and make it better. It's daddy's coming and you're in trouble, and like that's frightening, I think. Things, they take a terrible turn, and these two lovers, it's all they can do but to get away from this crime that is knocking on their door. There's murder, there's withdrawals, like steroid withdrawals and overuse. At one point, Jackie turns into a giant woman. There's this like body horror element that comes with her pushing her body to the limits with working out, with the steroids, and it manifests in such a great sort of like visual, I don't know, maybe not gag, but they do a great job where she undergoes this huge transformation. It's like her body is no longer hers. And they end up together? I almost kind of spoiled it, but it has been out for a few weeks. But it's like, can they outrun the wake of death and destruction that they leave behind? Can they make it? Can they have a life together? Love lies bleeding.
Dang. It's like a Ebert and what is it? Siskel and Ebert right there. Love Lies Bleeding, playing this Friday, the Plaza Theater. Just thumbs up.
Definitely thumbs up. So we're seeing there's a cyclical nature to the beginning and end. I found like with the introduction for Lou's character, sometimes things can't go away or won't go away. Dead things don't stay dead. The past will always come back to haunt you. It's just how fast can you run? How strong are you to fend it off? And like, is love enough to save you from it? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it lies bleeding here on the floor.
Well, there's some bleeding that's lying around in this movie, but shifting gears, tell us about The Third Man, which you watched for the first time.
I did. I watched that for the first time. Anytime I take a step back and I, visit these like older essential films, that's how I get my film education. And I'm so grateful that this class session was on The Third Man. The Third Man, the story of down and out Western author Holly Martins, gets a really great name. Another fun androgynous name, Lou, Jackie, Holly. Or like gender subversive name, Holly for a guy. He gets help from a friend, Harry Lime, who
also a great name,
who buys him a plane ticket to Berlin to work for him. This is post World War II Berlin. It's completely bombed out, devastated. The ruins of World War II, people are living and playing amongst them, walking over the rubble.
Are you talking about where the movie takes place?
Yeah.
It's in Vienna.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's in Vienna.
And also had its share of bombing.
Had its share of bombing. And it's controlled by the French, the English, the Russians, and the German. Like, did I see it? I don't think so. Actually, move on to the next one.
We'll just say the Allies. I don't know.
The Allies. It's controlled by a bunch of different. You know what? This is actually. Let me save this. Let me save this. Hold on a second. I am an American, and I am confronted by my closed-minded American, politics, and I'm confronted with it, just like Holly is throughout the entirety of this movie. An American sticking his nose where it doesn't belong in foreign affairs, just like what I did just then. My own ignorance is my own downfall, as is Holly's. He gets a wild hair. He is confronted with the death of his friend, this friend that just sent him this plane ticket overseas, that he just corresponded with, that just set him up this new job. He gets to Vienna, controlled by other forces, split up amongst various forces, and is told that his friend is dead. He attends the funeral of his friend, but it seems as though there could be a little bit of foul play that was the ultimate downfall of his friend. So what does Holly do? What does any writer worth his salt do? He tries to solve this mystery by sticking his American nose in it where it does not belong. And he is constantly reminded of the fact that this does not concern him. He's out of his depth, and he'll never truly understand what it means to live and try and work and eke out a living in this post-war Vienna. He meets Anna, who is a woman who attended Harry's funeral. Anna reveals herself to be Harry's lover, and the two strike up a relationship where she translates for Holly, helps him sort of navigate the city while still keeping a lot of information to herself. She still maintains her allegiance to Harry. That is her man, and she stands by him. Holly is confronted by the police and asked to, back off, or if not back off, help solve the case of Harry's death. Harry is revealed to be a smuggler, a man who makes dealings on the black market, and who has done something absolutely heinous by selling tainted medicine. To Harry, it's all he can do to get by. It's his life or somebody else's, and he'll choose his life every time. Not certainly valiant, not a very, valiant or heroic way to live, but it's a living to him. To the rest of the powers that be, their real lives on the line, and somebody has to be held accountable for that. And what plays out is sort of it's a noir, but it just completely subverts everything that I thought that I knew about a noir, and also everything that I thought that I knew about this movie. I thought that this was a much more serious, or tense. I thought there was a little more tension. And I recognize it for those Dutch angles, those canted angles throughout. Everything is off kilter, off center. Nothing really makes sense. The story that Holly is told about how Henry was walking in the street outside of his apartment, run over by his own driver. His friends carried his body off, and his doctor showed up just in time to pronounce him dead at the scene. So there's something suspicious going on here. And then it is revealed to Holly that it wasn't two men that dragged Harry's body off. There was a third man. Who's the third man?
The titular man.
The titular third man. And that is revealed to us later on with the big reveal of Orson Welles.
It's such a great reveal too, because you go the thing is an hour 50 minutes or a 2-hour movie, and you go an hour, and on the top of the marquee of the poster, it's Orson Welles, and you go through an hour plus of the movie, and you're like, what the hell is Orson Welles? And then he finally just has the reveal where he turns, and you have gets the dark background, so you just see the shine of his face. It's awesome. It's a fantastic reveal. Much better than the action figures I was referencing in the beginning of this episode. Great.
That's definitely one reveal that'll make you stand up and cheer. There he is.
It's an awesome reveal. Great music. Vienna, great movie set. Just a great place to put a movie. You got Third Man. You got Before Sunrise. Just great walking around town movies. You can visit Vienna and go into the sewers where they filmed The Third Man and like be in there if that's what you want to do. I don't know why, but
Well, I learned that Orson Welles didn't want to film in the sewers
no, I
at
did not.
all. So he made them build him a soundstage that resembled the sewers. He's like, I can only imagine what he said. Absolutely not. I don't want to wait around in refuse, in like or some other, smart word for shit. Orson Welles is the king of, he's got a real turn of
Oh
phrase
yeah,
about him. But good on him, stick to your guns. And he didn't want to do it. And I guess he just has that pull, or he had that pull.
yeah. It's Orson Welles.
It's Orson Welles. We'll give him what he wants.
We established before recording that Orson Welles great hang. Like they always pose like the if you could get dinner with like 3 people living or dead. Like, not that I like love Orson Welles a lot, but like if you were just like basing it off of who would you invite to have like the best time? Not necessarily like your all time favorite people, because just because they're great may not mean they're great at like having a dinner together. Orson Welles seems like one you should strongly consider because I feel like he would be like an all-time great like dinner guest. So that has nothing to do with the movie. I just want to share that because I think you got to think about that when you're posed with the question 3 people you would want to have living or dead you'd want to have dinner with is you want them to also be fun at dinner. You don't want them just be lecturing you. Be a bummer.
I think you would do a really good job critiquing everything that you ate. Of course, there's an after dinner cigar, a before dinner cigar, a during dinner cigar that we would probably have to smoke as well, or maybe his pipe.
Yeah, but I would just let him cook. I would like let him let him go. Like just let him be Orson Welles. That sounds fun. Like a night with Orson Welles sounds like a great time.
My dinner with Orson.
Yeah, that'd been a fun time.
Instead, I would have rather
fucking Andre.
Yeah. Boring. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Third Man. Catch it if you haven't seen it. Great time. Awesome movie. Shout out to Vienna. If we have any Austrian folks listening or watching, shout out to Vienna. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna move to some silent comedy that came out last year, and that is Hundreds of Beavers. Hundreds of Beavers was directed by Mike Cheslick, and it stars a man whose name it says is Rylan Brixton Cole Twos. I don't know if that's his real name, but whatever. Hundreds of Beavers. So I described it on Letterboxd. Let me see. I described it as silent slapstick Stardew Valley Looney Tunes, and I stand by that assessment. It's so the plot is it's the 19th century. Rylan Brixton Cole Twos plays John Kayak of Acme Applejack, who is an Applejack salesman who then a fire starts after this crazy party and burns down his like apple cider empire or whatever. And so then he has to change professions. And so he ends up becoming a fur trader. And there's a really successful fur trader who's like just killing it. He always is like selling the furs to the merchant, and the merchant really wants the really successful fur trader guy to marry his daughter, but his daughter is entertained by our boy John Kayak, who's not very good at fur trading. The whole movie's silent. It's in black and white. His goal ends up being he needs to get hundreds of beaver furs in order to buy a ring so that he can take the heart of the deer maiden.
Deer, like is she a deer? Because like if everybody's
deer maiden, I don't know. I was
like DEAR. Okay,
not a deer.
I thought because they're beavers, but they'd be deers.
No, well, there's some deers. So he has to get and I'll preface with the beavers and the rabbits and the wolves that he encounters are not actual versions of those animals, but people with like, think of like mascot costumes. And so like their mascot costumes of beavers and wolves and rabbits, which adds to the comic level. But it is very much, it feels like a Looney Tune cartoon. I mean, there's literal like jumping through little holes in the ground and ending up somewhere else, like he's Bugs Bunny. Um, but then there's this whole layer of like gaming that's involved with it, because then halfway through he starts to kind of pick up how he can do this. Like, you got to set the traps, you got to set these specific traps here, you got to set up this specific trap here. And there's this long stretch of the movie where he's following this map of his traps, and it kind of feels like, that's why I mentioned Stardew Valley. It reminds me of like Stardew Valley, or Animal Crossing, or any like kind of like RPG game similar like to that, where it's like like the plot is moving where he's going to each different place, and you're getting like a small update of like, sometimes he doesn't do it right, but then sometimes he does it right and he catches something. And then when he catches something, it's like, oh, you got 4 rabbits now. And then it's like, you got 4 rabbits, you can buy this specific tool from the merchant. And it becomes literally like an RPG game for a while, which I just found fascinating, because how I'm describing it does not sound all that interesting. But I think that they like the way they, I think if you've played any video game or enjoy any video game of that type, I think like that repetitive nature of it is kind of nice. I liked it. I kind of liked that, like the, like thinking of, again, using the analogy of Stardew Valley, like the sun comes up, do chores, do stuff during the day, sun goes down, and start it over the next day type thing. I really enjoyed that. But I don't want to understate the comedy. This movie is fucking hilarious. This movie's really, really funny. And it's a mix of just like really strong physical comedy, really strong slapstick gags, like just really clever gags. There's this whole, there's a number of like brawl sequences that are like really well choreographed and like a really fun time. It gets very surrealist at times. It gets, I think that like it's constant. It's never still. It's a movie that's never still, and I could see people's mileage varying on that, because it's like it's very sporadic. It's very all over the place. I mean, it's like a Looney Tune cartoon. It's just constantly like pulling rugs, bopping you on the head, like stuff, pulling, grabbing, having a little cane that pulls you out of the screen. It's like it's constantly doing all that stuff. But I found it, I don't know, a lot of the comedy stuff in terms of like movies and such get a little stale. We went through that whole stretch of like, where a lot of movie comedies were just mirroring like improv to a degree, and it felt like the movie was like a filmed Second City show or something like that, or it was Seth Rogen doing his thing, or it was like a bunch of Saturday Night Live cast members doing their thing, which isn't inherently bad, but kind of like after like the same thing over and over again, you're like, yeah, we get it. And this one feels like this, this feels fresh, it feels new, it feels weird, it feels like strange. It's different. I kind of, you may hate it, but like I feel like you got to at least give it some props for being not the same old that you run into. I feel like the main character guy, he again, Ryland Brixton Cole Twos. Like I think I love the way I love his performance, and I love the way that they play with just the fact that you have like probably 6 to 8 people in different animal costumes, like messing around through the thing, because it's a lot of it feels like, I think a lot of people would feel like it like kind of runs into the ground, because it gets into these very, very like repetitive cycles of like him trying to set up a trap, a gag happening where he fails, and then him trying to set up the trap again, and then like kind of getting one level up, and then it fails, and then it's all about like step 1, step 2, and it's just kind of steps along the way. And I don't know, to me, as somebody who's played video games and like RPG games similar to that for a long time, I responded to that because there is like there's to me I found like the cadence to kind of out of all of this like unstructured chaos, all this chaos that's happening, like that the structure of like an RPG game like gives it kind of like a backbone to a degree. And so you get that backbone to like work off of for the jokes and the slapstick and the physical comedy. And I feel like it understands that structure and just does that over and over again, so that while it's very chaotic the entire time, it at least finds a backbone occasionally and uses that to just work off of. Um, and and yeah, I don't know. It's probably one of my favorites that I've seen so far this year. It kind of hit the festival, like I think a lot of the like indie, like kind of indie-ish festivals last year. But if it's playing around you, it's definitely worth checking out. It's I think it's a real fun time. I hope that it'll get some sort of like more accessible like streaming or something like that at some point. Because I don't know, I think people would kind of go for it. I think like the irreverence and the irreverence of the humor would play well. I mean, the audience. I went and saw it at the independent theater here, and people were laughing the whole time. And it was a very like wide ranging age range.
Fun for the whole family.
Yeah, like there's nothing like inappropriate necessarily. There's like I mean it's kind of it's like Looney Tunes. There's innuendo jokes and things like that, but like there's nothing like inherently inappropriate. It's just kind of silly. uh yeah, I don't know. Hundreds of Beavers, good time, enjoyed it, thumbs up. It's fun. It's a fun time at the movies. All right, I'm gonna talk briefly about Dream Scenario, which came out last year as well. This comes from Christopher Borgli, which sounds like a name you made up in an improv session. It stars Nicolas Cage, and I think most people are familiar with this, even if they didn't see it. It's the movie with Nicolas Cage where he's appearing in people's dreams, and the kind of quick log line is so Nicolas Cage is appearing in people's dreams. They don't know why. It's people that he like knows, but also just people from around the world. And so he starts appearing in people's dreams, and usually at the beginning he's just kind of like showing up and like they're like they've like don't have pants on in the front of the classroom or whatever, and people are laughing at them, and then like Nicolas Cage just like randomly walking in the background. Or like there's this one guy and he's getting chased by this like horror movie killer guy, and like he's hiding, and Nicolas Cage just kind of like walks over and doesn't say anything. And so initially it's like this kind of harmless fun. He starts to gain this like international fame where people are reaching out to him going, oh my gosh, it's the guy in my dreams, blah 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 blah. And then he starts like kind of like buying into it. He like goes and takes a meeting with this this kind of like PR marketing agency that's run by Michael Cera, who is like he's trying to like get him to like get like a partnership with Sprite and like be in Sprite commercials. It kind of it has a very like kind of TikTok marketing effect where it's just like grabbing the like popular thing and just like turning it into some sort of advertising immediately. But then naturally, like as he becomes more like engrossed in fame, it start like the dreams, like he doesn't have any control over like what's happening in the dreams. And so the dreams start becoming more like violent, and he starts like becoming more of like a Freddy Krueger figure rather than just kind of showing up, to the point where he's a college professor and like his class doesn't want him teaching anymore because like they're unable to like go to class because he's like done all these heinous things to them in his dreams, or in their dreams, and like they just like can't be in a room with them because they're uncomfortable. And so then it just kind of like continues to dissolve and dissolve and dissolve, and that's pretty much the rest of the movie. It Nicolas Cage is very good. I mean, it's kind of like it's a very like Nick Cage performance of the last few years, very much in like the Mandy or Pig or what's the one about where he's playing himself like that. Like it's very much in that
The unbearable weight of massive talent.
yeah, it's very much in like that ilk
I like
where it's
that
just kind of
title.
him. It's got that kind of performance, but it's more. I would say it's more in like the Pig or Mandy where it's like he's giving a performance, even though he's like Nicolas Cage in it to a degree. He's giving a performance that's kind of interesting and like playing off of just the recognizing the recognition like that people have of him. And so yeah, but I don't know. It turns into this. It's produced by Ari Aster, which already tells you that it like it's not gonna have. It's gonna try to make a point, but not very well. Um, and it kind of does that. It dovetails into like this commentary on cancel culture and like how how it could something can start out as being innocent and like fun and everybody loves it, and then it just like immediately turns and it's like this person is like the worst person in the world, which I feel like is a very like I understand what they're doing in the context of like the story here, but like as a commentary on cancel culture, you're just like, yeah, that's it's not what that is mostly. Like that's not really what that is. It's like if you're looking at like somebody like it's kind of tough to be like, okay, this person was somebody who like had no control but was like entering people's dreams and it was like fine for a long time, but then it became damaging. um like it's not you can't really compare that to somebody like like are you trying to like connect it to like a Louis CK or somebody like that, and you're like, it's like Louis CK is not canceled. Dude like sold out Madison Square Garden like a year ago. Like he's still highly successful. Are you comparing it to like a Woody Allen? Woody Allen's not canceled. He just made a movie like a couple months ago. Like he's getting paid and he's like they're able to like do what they want to do. So they're not technically canceled. And it kind of gets into that where he like just kind of fully like goes all in on like the dream thing and like is trying to just capitalize. Like he literally like they make this whole joke and then he ends up going to France to like sell his book because they're like the French love you. Like they don't care about all the stuff. And I don't know. I don't think it has much. Like I don't think the point really lands. I think it's kind of it feels again like it just kind of feels like one of those where it's just like cancel culture and you're like okay, and then it's just like there you go. It doesn't have like an actual point it wants to make. It just kind of wants to relate it to something else to like feel like it's making a larger point about culture and society, but really has no like thesis or real like like conclusion that it comes to. So I don't know. It's on HBO Max now. It's on Max. It's kind of I don't know. It's whatever. I wasn't super into it. There's like this whole I don't know. Anyway, so it's just yeah. That's all I have to say about it. I don't know. I can't say that I necessarily recommend it, but I just got bored halfway through. I'll just say that. Like I didn't hate it, but I got bored halfway through, and I was like, yeah, this is whatever. It's just a real bummer. You hate when that happens.
Yeah,
I'd
you
rather
called
just
it
hate
milk
it.
toast.
Milk toast.
Yeah, them's fighting words.
You spell it MILQUE toast. Isn't that great?
Like you spell it like how it sounds.
Yeah, but I feel like you'd hear it and you think it's like MILK, but no, it's
No, I was quoting the
MILQUE.
next movie.
That's good.
You spell it like how it sounds. There's your
That's
segue.
nice. There it is. And on that note, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna be talking about Biutiful after this. And we're back with part 2 of episode 472 of Cinematary. This part, we're going to be talking about 2010's Biutiful, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, from a script by Inarritu, Armando Bo, and Nicolas Jacobone. The film stars Javier Bardem, Maricel Alvarez, and Eduard Fernandez. The film follows Uxbal, a criminal and father who is diagnosed with prostate cancer and seeks to settle his affairs and responsibilities before he dies. The title is in reference to the phonetic spelling in Spanish of the English word beautiful. I also have to read the log line for the movie on Letterboxd because it literally makes no damn sense. This is a story of a man in free fall. On the road to redemption, darkness lights his way. Connected with the afterlife, Uxbal is a tragic hero and father of two who's sensing the danger of death. He struggles with a tainted reality and a fate that works against him in order to forgive, for love, and forever. Like that sounds like a coming this summer. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Inarritu got the idea for the film while listening to Maurice Ravel's Piano Concerto, and its slow middle movement features prominently in the film's soundtrack. The film's model, Akira Kurosawa's 1953 Japanese epic Ikiru, is described as a similar structure and morale in an article by The Guardian's Philip French. French writes, quote, "The way a middle-aged Japanese civil servant reacts to the news that he has terminal cancer and transformed it into a profound statement about the human condition." I don't think that's what's happening here, but okay. Bardem, in an interview with NPR on living with his character for 5 months and how isolating it was, said, quote, "When you're portraying somebody that has a very specific emotional weight, you feel like you're really starting to abandon your own body and go to someplace else. And then when you come back to yourself, people that know you well, they ask, why did you say that? Or why are you doing this? Or why are you behaving this way? But you don't realize because it's so unconscious, you don't have control over it." In the same interview, Bardem talks about taking on more English-speaking roles, saying, "It's like I'm trying to express myself, and there's this office in my brain full of people working at the same time, trying to not be wrong with the intonation with the words. So it's very exhausting. If I speak Spanish, that office is closed. But working in English gives me a different kind of freedom because since some of the words don't have an emotional resonance with me, I can play with them more freely. When you're speaking in your mother tongue, you may be more cautious." On his character Uxbal, he told Salon, quote, "This is the most powerful character I've played so far, and I'm not sure if I will ever play somebody like this again. There are so many layers to convey and so many circumstances to construct. Relationships of many different kinds, people that you use, people that you are used by, affectionate relationships, hate relationships, and then there's the sickness. I felt there was no way I could do this without putting myself at risk, because Alejandro's work, the way I see it, is about being as honest as you can. The work of the actor has to be about taking off all these faces, social characters that you put on yourself in order to survive out there, and getting as naked as you can in order not to interfere with the character. This character needs to be as transparent as crystal, because there are so many things that have to be seen through his behavior, his voice, those things that have to be attached to the actor emotionally. Otherwise, you cannot portray them, and it will be a fake performance. Oh, I'm sick. No, all of this has to be from within. So that's when he's not speaking. When he's walking on the street, you will see that. That was the challenge, and that was the exhausting part. Bringing all that and putting it in there and saying, I want to hold this for 5 months. In the New York Times, it said, in Biutiful, Javier Bardem brings admirable passion to a gritty story that amounts to a lower depths urban version of the passion. Mr. Bardem, best known to American audiences for his chillingly persuasive embodiment of evil in No Country for Old Men, combines muscular, charismatic physicality with an almost delicate sensitivity, and this blend of the rough and tender gives Biutiful a measure of emotional credibility that it may not entirely deserve. The Hollywood Reporter in 2010, they said, Biutiful will require several viewings for the film to yield a complete portrait of its mysterious, flawed hero. Because of all the complexity of his previous films with fractured multiple narratives and an array of international characters, this in many ways is Inarritu's most intricate study yet of the human condition. And Roger Ebert said in 2010, The film's moral sense is heartfelt, but not especially daring. By giving us a good man as his hero, Inaritu possibly weakens his case against the general sense of injustice in his film. Uxbal is so wholly sympathetic that it's hard for us to assign blame for his sins, and yet surely they are sins. Perhaps the idea is that he inhabits a world so lacking in goodness that his possibilities for choice are limited. Everyone he comes into contact with is flawed except for his children and Ige, a Senegalese woman who he hires as a nanny for his children. And her love for them, and to a degree for him, is warm but almost obligatory in a story of this sort. One more unworthy character would be unthinkable. On that note, let's talk about Biutiful. I mean, I feel like I'm on the record on the podcast. I'm not a giant fan at all of Inaritu. At least I've mainly seen his American output, and it's all just pretentious and just like unrelenting for what I feel like is no reason. Like Birdman a little bit better than I just absolutely hated The Revenant. Like just absolutely hated The Revenant. Just being hard for the purpose of this is art. Like this is art is just like shoving your face in the snow saying this is art. This didn't feel as much like that, but still like this guy, like, can somebody give him can he do a slapstick comedy? Can he do something like light, like fun? Like can he it just seems like he's just he just seems like such a chore to hang out with. Like we were talking about Orson Welles earlier. Like he seems like such a chore to this guy seems like a chore to hang out with, and he's friends with Alfonso Cuarón, who seems like kind of the middle ground, and then Guillermo del Toro, who seems like just a jolly dude to hang out with. And you got Inaritu, because this movie, these movies are tough because you're like, is it a bad movie? Technically, no. Technically, it's a very well-made movie. Javier Bardem is fantastic in it. The rest of the cast is great also. But I kind of side with Ebert on this one, where it's just it kind of just feels like we're I don't know. I know what we're supposed to be seeing and feeling, but I don't it. I wish there I aspire for something else, because to me it just feels it feels a lot like just this kind of that's not the right word, but that I'm thinking of, but just sitting here in this toughness, in this hard life. It's kind of hard life porn, it's just sitting in there for 2.5 hours of tough life, and I'm I get it, and I sympathize with this character, but at some point he it has to turn into it's gonna get better or it's gonna get way worse, and he has to be again unsympathetic. And I think that there is a turn late in the movie where it's supposed to make him less sympathetic, but I don't really feel like that effectively does that. And so I kind of just it just ended, and I was just kind of cool. That was a bummer. I don't really know what I gleaned out of that, other than that this guy had a hell of a time to the end of his life. But I know that you're much more positive on this movie than I just was.
It's hard to be positive in the face of something
positive. Yeah, positive in terms of
but I think what I really took away from it, I was absolutely mystified by some of these shots, completely spellbound. It's very visually stimulating and also pretty daring. I really loved the use of, you see things in reflections or sort of distorted reflections, any sort of reflective surface, the camera focus is there, and what plays out is then relayed back, reflected. It's, it's flipped. It's sort of like an impression. It's impressionistic in that way, in that artful way of what's actually happening. I also agree with you what you say about how it is kind of oh God, what did you say? Is something porn, it's
the phrase I felt like I was looking for was poverty porn.
Poverty porn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I saw a lot of the reviews where, or like just casual audience reviews
Mm-hmm.
where they said this would have worked as like a documentary, like following his life and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just a day in the life of Uxbal. And, you know, what does he have to face as this middleman criminal in the middle of, what is he in the middle of? He's in the middle of his midlife, like he's in his 40s, middle of his life, middle of this disease, in the middle of dying. He's in the middle man. He's the middleman for
He's literally a
two.
middleman.
He's
Yeah.
a criminal middleman. He's also in the middle, in between life and death, with his powers as this like mystic, this psychic. They said that I saw a lot of people said that this would have worked better as like a documentary because there is no takeaway. But I guess the takeaway is that like his suffering does stop, and that is a relief, and that is the, you know, denouement, is that this hard life, this suffering, it will end eventually, and like there's no fighting that. I also I appreciated that. I mean, I don't really think that that's like positive, but that just is what worked for me, is like you see this life that he lives, this cycle of crime and of poverty, of neglect, this sort of, he's completely lost in this world. It's just him and his brother, no real family, besides his, no father, no mother, and he's
Mm-hmm.
just like stuck in this cycle that he can't get out of, and there is no getting out of it. Like, how could you climb your, like, how could you like lift yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever, like we Americans love? Like, how can you climb out of that? How can you ever find relief from that? And for him, the relief is knowing that his children are taken care of, and dying. There's a comfort in his death, and there's also a real his death. He passes away in his bed in his home next to his daughter, and there's something sort of beautiful about that. There's it's not so violent as some of the other deaths that we've seen. It's not so sad. It's a little more comforting. There's a little more
It's not as sorry to interrupt, but
no,
it's not as like
please.
like I guess to dig into like the scene. So there's the scene late in the movie. So one of the jobs that he does is he's the middleman between this warehouse with a number of Chinese migrants
Immigrants.
um, who are like looking for work, and he's set up work for them at like a construction site. And they all live like in, since you know they don't have, they're undocumented, like they're living in this warehouse basement, and it's cold down there, and so he has to get heaters, and they like buy these like gas heaters or whatever for them. And then late in the movie, the person who comes and like gets them every morning like opens the door and like immediately like smells gas, and there's been a gas leak in this room and has killed all
They
25.
suffocated. Yeah.
Yeah, they suffocated all 25 people who were there. And so like he blames that on himself, but like I bring that up to say that like the death there, it's like very like at arm's length, you know, like you kind of, it's not like you're in there watching the people like take their last breath. You just walk in and it's happened. Like there was no lead up or like insinuation that the character was gonna, you know, go away or something like that. It just happens.
It's very abrupt and upsetting and a little violent. You just like look, but there's some tenderness as well. Some people pass holding each other. So there's that closeness, a little tenderness, a little dignity. But I think that his passing is much more dignified and much kinder. And that there's also a closeness to it. Like we're much closer to him. But it's like finally that here's your eternal rest. Here's your peace. Here's the peace that you couldn't find in life. And he is then reunited with his father. And this movie is cyclical because it starts with I mean, we don't really know, what we're looking at, but we're looking at two hands holding
Mhm.
each other, talking about a wedding ring, and that ring, the cycle, the circle, eternity. They're discussing the story of the ring, and then there seems to be this sort of sequence where he's in the snow and he's talking to this person, and there's um I felt like there was some real familiarity between Uxbal and this figure who appears to him in the woods. Like
Mhm.
the figure recognizes him and knows him, and maybe Uxbal doesn't know him just yet, but he starts
Mhm.
to figure out who he is. And then by the end, um, we're given the rest, like the full picture, the rest of that.
Well, I feel like he recognizes them because midway through the movie, one of the plot lines in the movie is they have to move their father's casket and like get him like move him out of the casket because there's development is going to be taking over the land where they've been storing these bodies. So they're going to remove him from the casket and cremate him, and he died in Mexico. He fled Spain during Franco's rule, and ended up in Mexico, but then died a number of months after he got there of pneumonia. And so then they like shipped the body back to Spain, and he's been embalmed. And so they asked them to open up the casket to like
Right.
see the body. And he like is able, like, it's a dead body, but because of the embalming, like you get a sense of like what he kind of looked like, which you realize is the person in the forest at the beginning and the end. But like but to your point, like it's kind of like this familiarity, like he knows who he is, but because he doesn't really have because he's like, I don't know my father. Like I never met him, and so he like has a relationship. So it's like this is somebody who I'm familiar with and know, but also don't have a relationship with. So there's this kind of like timidness to like fully like embrace into the like the kind of wordplay that's happening when they meet.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
The other thing to mention also is that there's this, I wouldn't say like necessarily like spiritual level, but like he has like this, it seems like it's kind of a job, but not like a full-time thing. He has like this kind of side, he has like this spiritual connection to the dead, and you are introduced into that when there's this family has like lost lost children in some sort of accident, but it's not totally clear what happened. And he like goes in there and like touches the body to like communicate with the dead to a degree. And like this family is like paying him, the father pays him to like pretty much like deliver whatever message they had. And so like again, like kind of just going into the like going back to the point you were making about him and his father in this forest, like he has this connection to the dead that you see kind of touched on occasionally throughout the film.
That like magical realism, how that's just his gift, that in this world there are people that are connected to both sides. He helps the dead pass on, and there's also another real like reverence for the dead, more of a respect that we give the dead than we do the living. I think that is, kind of, it's just a little point that's made. But that was very spooky, and his encounters with the dead, these spirits, these ghosts that he helps or that he's able
Mhm.
to see and communicate with, comes back with the bodies and spirits of these Chinese migrants that he
Mhm.
feels responsible for in a very spooky way. They're like spiders like in the rafters and just like out of his field of vision. They're hanging from the ceiling. They're kind of like always there. You can like always see them. That was very spooky, I thought.
Yeah.
Me, I can't really make too much sense of that.
Well,
um,
and so he has this kind of close connection with this mother and her daughter, who like comes and like watches his children, or would watch his children occasionally. And so of course they're among the victims in this of the people who died. And like you could see him like going over there, like touching her to like try to create this connection to like he wants to tell her he's sorry, but you can tell like it doesn't happen. Like he says that she's just she's already gone. Like he's unable to establish the connection that he's been able to do up to this point with, but is unable to do it with this person who he personally wants to speak to.
Like he wants to apologize, and he also wants forgiveness too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like seeking forgiveness from people, seeking absolution, getting those affairs in order. And it's not just like your financial affairs, but it's like affairs of the spirit, of the soul. And that sort of where you're looking to repent, and you're looking for absolution from these people in your life, the people that you need it from the most. You need their forgiveness in order to continue on. Like how his children are always looking for forgiveness for their actions from him, how his estranged wife is looking for forgiveness. Everybody is seeking forgiveness for what they have to do or what they've done for their actions. So I also, that kind of stuck out to me in that where he's like holding all three hands. He's holding her infant son's hand, her hand, and his all together. This sort of like Trinity, the three. There's a lot of the religion that's sort of it's all throughout. I mean, I thought I looked up what Uxbal means, and it's like the three things times three.
Yeah.
So he's a Trinity figure, Father, Son, and a Holy Spirit. He is a father, he is a son, and then later on, he is a spirit.
He's a spirit. Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go.
And and then there's the father, son relationship, and then there's the father, son, daughter relationship, and like there are really good triangles, really good trios throughout.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy have you seen the movie Ikiru by
No, I have not.
I don't know. I don't necessarily buy that comparison. I feel like he's probably around the same he was before he was diagnosed with cancer. Like the whole point of that movie is that the character is diagnosed with cancer and like has this whole like complete 180 on life and becomes much more like receptive to people in life after being very closed off for so long. I don't necessarily feel like that's what's going on here. I feel like it's like that, like the cancer is just a part of the other things he's going through, and it doesn't feel like it ever shifts who he is as a person and how he interacts with others. I feel like in terms of like any sort of compassion, I just feel like any sort of compassion or anything that he shares, whether it's it's Maramba, his ex-wife, or his children, or anybody, I feel like that's probably just there already. We don't have anything to like, I guess we don't have anything to say that it was different before.
No, definitely not. But from what we see, he does like invite Maramba back into their lives. He moves the children over there thinking that the children need to be around their mother. They need to have the mother-father experience that he didn't have growing up. I do get that sense. But I think if anything, it kind of gives him more of a sense of urgency about his life. Like, I've really got to get this shit together. Like, I have really got to get my money together. I have really got to make these plans. Things that he probably didn't really think about before come into the forefront, and the choices that he makes are then informed by the life that he has to leave behind for his children.
I guess like if the ending is supposed to be this kind of like meditation on the human condition, and it's like he's going away, but he's like set up a better situation for the people around him. I don't feel like I found that very compelling in this. Like, he does do that, but I guess I didn't find the route that it took to get there. Like, it didn't feel like when that happened at the very end, it didn't move me like I feel like it was supposed to. I guess I didn't totally buy into the journey that he took.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. Like it, it just seems like he was all around a good guy, and it.
Like, well, just like I feel like you're supposed to have like your highs and your lows, and like there's not many highs in this. You have like little small moments between him and the kids that are like nice. Like you can tell that he's like a good dad, like that in that like he seems to try his best even though he may fail at like looking out for his kids. And those are kind of the highs. Other than that, I just feel like we're just like I guess I just feel like we're wallowing in lows. Again, not it doesn't. I don't. I'm saying this based off of a critic's interpretation of the movie, less Inarritu's intention. But like, if it's going to be Akiru, like he improves other people's lives, but it doesn't feel like you get a full arc with that. He leaves an apartment and money and such for Iggy and her son. He leaves his children, in
Her care.
yeah, in her care, in probably a much better environment than with his ex-wife. And so they're, in a better place also. But like the point of the Kurosawa movie is like he uses his last days to improve the lives of these people, and there's like whole arcs where this is where they started, this is where they leave off. And I just don't feel like that ever does that. You get moments with these characters, but I never really bought that there was a full that there was this full redemption among it. Just kind of feels like the clock just ran out and he did what he could and the movie's over.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, he did what he could. That makes me think of what Marumba says. She's like, I'm sorry for the things that I did to survive. And I think that is like a much more appropriate like tagline, logline for this.
She's a really good. She's a very interesting character. I thought she was interesting just because she's a mess. But like I think that in the testament to like the actress, like you understand why, like you understand that like maybe half of it is her, but then half of it, I think she seems to be dealing and struggling with a lot of demons on her own that like make it difficult for her to be 100% present for him and the kids.
Well, like she talks about like her mental health, like her bipolarity, and then they dance around like addiction, active addiction. It seems as though like Uxbal, when he draws his blood in the doctor's office at the very beginning, he's able to do it very easily. He has experience with needles. Perhaps he's a recovered addict, or definitely a recovered addict. And like it seems as though like he was able to like shuffle off his demons, where she wasn't able to. And he does seem to sort of like kind of hold her feet to the fire, like you have not changed and you will not change. And he does seem to be like very harsh on her. And she is a very interesting character. I did like find her, she's an interesting character and a hard mother to watch. But
you can't completely just be like, she sucks, like because I think the actress does a great job of like giving you, showing you, and kind of giving you hints of reasons why like she's dealing with a lot to like just kind of function, and a lot of that ends up leading to clearly like late in the movie like harm towards herself and the children and Uxbal.
Yeah. Oof.
No,
I didn't. I now that we've talked about it, I guess I do agree with you that like, where are the highs? Those like fleeting moments of like domestic bliss, parent, and it seems as though like if everybody has a family throughout this, family at like at very different, what is a family to them? Like there's the obvious like the more intimate family of Anna Mateo and Uxbal, and then you expand it to add Marumba, and then you expand it to add his brother. But then there's Aquame and Iggy and their child. Then there's his business partner, and how his family, they're all busted by the police, but like they were enjoying like domestic bliss. Like,
well, and you
everything.
also you have the whole subplot with his business partner who also is having like a relationship with this other guy who like is tangentially related to the business, and it's clearly something that's kept away from his family. It's that kind of gets
Murky,
confusing.
like trying to separate
Yeah.
family from business and business and family and the family business.
Well,
And
it's so far away from like the main
Yeah.
plot that you're just like, what's going you don't know how it all works together, kind of to a degree.
It's an interesting tension that like adds to the fact that like those two, when they're in business together, they're in bed and in business together, and they,
Yeah, I don't feel like it's given much.
And then he kills him, and then, or I
Yeah.
guess he does, and like his boyfriend's bloody body is just in the bed.
Well,
And
he had to tie up loose ends. He didn't.
Yeah.
They're pretty much like, we can't have anybody talking.
He's got to
So
settle affairs.
he got to settle affairs. Very Godfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just to take an example, like I was thinking about while we were talking, from his friend Del Toro. Like, you think about like Pan's Labyrinth, which is a movie that's like grappling with a lot of like really dark, difficult things. Del Toro takes the fantasy route, where you like have this like fantasy world element to it, this kind of Alice in Wonderland to a degree to it, to like kind of process that, process the dark with just like some sort of semi light, even though that's still kind of a fleeting light. And so I just find like that's a much more like effective, like, not to say that this needed like some fantasy element, but like it just needed something to like provide some sun with all. Like, I'm fine with like having to grapple with like these really difficult characters who are dealing with difficult circumstances that a lot of them are not going to survive. But I feel like you also have to provide something that at least shows that there were some sunny days amongst the rain, and I feel like Inarritu is just horrible at doing that. Like, he just wants to completely just focus in on like it's hard, it's difficult, there's no sun, like it's just people trying to survive. And I'm just like, okay, but to me as an audience member, I just can't. After a while, I'm just like, we got them. Like, it's 2.5 hours long. I'm like, after 2 hours, we got the message. Like, this sucks. And like I just don't feel like I ever came away, like, from watching. I didn't come away with any feeling like I learned anything. Like, not really necessarily learned anything, but like felt something. Like, emotionally, by the end, I was just kind of like, like it was just drained. I was just like, okay. That's. I feel like these movies are tough to talk about because, like you said before, like I don't disagree with what you were saying. Like, technically, like, it's shot so well. He's very talented.
Yeah.
Like, it's shot so well. It's Rodrigo Pietro who did the cinematography. He's super talented. But I feel like if I was watching, the thing I was thinking about, if I watched this in 2010, I would have said this was an incredible movie and probably put it in my top 10. But because I didn't have the like language to explain it, or like the critical thinking skills to like kind of counteract it. It was just like, it's a movie that technically was marvelous, but I didn't know that really how to make sense of the plot. And so I just would have been like, this is great. Like, like it's handling something that we need to deal with. And now I'm just kind of like, yeah, like I feel like you can watch this and be like, it's technically marvelous. It's some incredible performances, but it's a pretty hollow movie outside, even though it's dealing with this stuff that I'm empathetic to. The story just doesn't necessarily lead in a way that was emotionally resonant to me by the end.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. I mean, and I won't even try, but.
Any final thoughts before we close it up?
What did you think about the club scene? That was disorienting, a little distracting, and it certainly felt like it didn't really fit. Do you think that that was that moment of like sunshine, where he like
If
no,
that
of
was
course not, where he
if
like lets loose and everything looks like a boob and like
No, I don't think it was necessarily sunshine. It just like honestly at that point I was just like, I get it, dude. That was after the whole day of like the dead bodies and stuff. Like yeah, like go and get drunk, do some
you
coke,
need to
and
be numb.
have some like butt boobs in your face.
Yeah,
For I get it. Like it's fine.
yeah.
But no, I wouldn't say because it's stylish, but it's not like fun stylish. It's just kind of it's stylishly shot, but it's not like it's not like something like Wolf of Wall Street has like these kind of like gratuitous like sexual moments that like is shot in this way that's supposed to feel like really cool and like you're just like wow like this is great like the strip club's not shot in a way that you're like wow this is great. It's more just kind of like here we go like this also sucks but there's boobs so
It's really disorienting and
yeah.
very upsetting. And that was also the only moment where he like says, I have cancer. I'm dying of cancer.
And
And
she's just like okay.
okay, I guess. It's like, why tell her? But yeah, it
It's
just
kind
felt
of
like it just numbed
you
the
gotta tell
pain, numbed the
somebody.
senses.
Well, it's kind of like you to tell somebody, so tell somebody who has no idea who you are, really.
Yeah, why lie to a stranger?
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. If you would like to follow us, go to Facebook, facebook.com/cinematary. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at handle @cinematary. And letterbox.com/cinematary, where we list all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/cinematary. You can be $1, can be $5. Really thankful to our patrons. We used the money that y'all donated over the past year to pay for the website and like the podcasting thing that we use to keep the episodes and such. We really appreciate that. That's literally keeping the lights on. So we appreciate our patrons: Cam, Ron Hayes, Tanner Huskins, Risa Marthathi, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, I think we're doing The Counselor. Is that? Yeah, we're doing 2013's The Counselor. We're going into his English language years. We've already done, before anybody asks, we've already done No Country for Old Men. I forgot what episode it is, but we've done that movie. So you can go back and listen to that if you want to like add to the Javier Bardem series. But next week or next episode, we're going to be doing 2013's The Counselor, which was directed by Ridley Scott and written by Scott and Cormac McCarthy. So should be an interesting one. But until then, thanks y'all for listening. We will see you next episode.